Imagine a world where the most loving parents in the neighborhood routinely suspended their newborn infants in wire cages over busy city traffic, or where the pursuit of a perfect hairstyle involved hooking your head up to a high-voltage machine that looked more like an instrument of state-sponsored torture than a beauty tool. It is a haunting yet mesmerizing realization that the 1950s, an era we often drape in the soft pastel colors of nostalgia and white picket fences, was actually a period of localized domestic peril where innovation frequently outpaced basic safety regulations. Number 5. Baby window cages. Long before the advent of modern childproofing or the hypervigilance of contemporary parenting, there was a deeply held, scientifically endorsed belief that airing a baby was essential for their constitutional health and the prevention of tuberculosis. In crowded urban environments like New York or London, where sprawling yards were a luxury of the elite, inventors looked at the empty space outside an apartment window and saw an untapped frontier for pediatric wellness. These baby cages were exactly what they sounded like. Sturdy wire mesh enclosures that bolted directly onto the window frame, extending several feet out into the open air, often dozens of stories above the pavement. A mother would simply open the window, place her infant inside the cage with a few toys, and go about her housework, while the child dangled precariously over the abyss. There was a chillingly clinical confidence in these devices, all marketed as a way to harden the child against the elements and ensure they received the maximum amount of vitamin D. While the cages were technically reinforced with metal brackets, the sight of a toddler peering through the floor of a wire mesh box at a yellow taxicab 500 feet below is enough to induce modern vertigo. It represents a fascinating moment in history where the perceived benefit of fresh air was so absolute that it completely blinded an entire generation to the catastrophic mechanical risks of structural failure or simple human error. The cage wasn't seen as a death trap. It was seen as a premium upgrade to the modern nursery, a way to reclaim the sky for the sake of the family. Number 4. Electric shock devices. The mid-century was also a time when the mystery of electricity still carried a faint scent of magic, leading many to believe that a quick jolt to the nervous system could cure everything from a persistent headache to a lack of vitality. This gave rise to a bizarre market of medical quackery known as violet ray machines and various invigorators that homeowners kept in their bedside drawers. These devices typically featured a glass wand filled with gas that, when plugged into a wall outlet, would glow with a haunting purple light and emit a low, aggressive hum. The user was encouraged to press this electrified glass directly against their skin, sending a series of micro shocks through their muscles to realign their internal energy. At best, these devices did absolutely nothing other than provide a mild tingle. At worst, they were poorly insulated electrical hazards being used in close proximity to the face and body. The logic of the time suggested that if electricity could power a city, it could certainly power a human being, and the more it stung, the better it was presumably working. People would sit in their living rooms, clutching buzzing electrodes in a sincere effort to shock themselves into a state of better health, never questioning why their wellness routine felt like a mild form of execution. It was the ultimate expression of the era's faith in the machine, the idea that the human body was just another appliance that occasionally needed a jump start. Number 3, home perm machines. If you look at high-end fashion magazines from the 1950s, the permanent wave was the absolute gold standard for feminine elegance. But achieving that look required a commitment to chemistry and heat that would be unthinkable in a modern salon. Our early home perm machines were massive, multi-tentacled contraptions that sat on a table with dozens of heavy metal clamps dangling from a central power source by thick, frayed wires. To use one, a woman would have her hair saturated in highly caustic alkaline chemicals, which were known to cause scalp burns and respiratory irritation. And then each individual lock of hair would be wound around a metal rod and clamped into the machine. Once the power was flipped on, these rods would heat up to blistering temperatures, literally baking the chemicals into the hair follicles. If the user moved too quickly, they risked a severe electrical shock or a localized fire. If they stayed under too long, their hair could literally melt off at the root. Despite the obvious physical danger of being tethered to a high-voltage heating element by your own scalp, these machines were marketed as the height of domestic convenience, allowing women to bypass the salon for a professional result at home. The visual of a woman sitting perfectly still, her head encased in a forest of smoking metal clamps and wires, perfectly encapsulates the 1950s philosophy that beauty was a trial to be endured and that no amount of risk was too high for the perfect silhouette. Number 2. Suntan reflector shields. During this decade, a deep bronze tan became the ultimate status symbol, signaling that one had the leisure time to lounge by a pool rather than toil in an office or factory. However, for those who lived in less temperate climates or simply wanted to accelerate the process, the suntan reflector shield became a common sight in American backyards. These were essentially large folding collars made of highly reflective metallic foil, shaped like a satellite dish and worn around the neck to focus every available ray of UV radiation directly onto the face and throat. It was the human equivalent of placing a magnifying glass over an ant. The shield would intensify the sun's heat and light to such an extreme degree that users would often suffer from literal second-degree burns or severe dehydration within minutes. There was no concept of SPF or long-term skin protection. Instead, the goal was to achieve a healthy glow. Number 1, face-lifting masks. Perhaps the most unsettling of all mid-century artifacts were the various mechanical and suction-based face-lifting masks designed to fight the inevitable march of time. Some of these were made of heavy, non-breathable rubber that would be strapped tightly to the head overnight, supposedly training the muscles to stay in place, but often resulting in restricted blood flow or skin infections from trapped sweat and bacteria. Others were even more elaborate, featuring small suction cups or spring-loaded clips that would physically pull the skin toward the ears to create a temporary smoothing effect. One particularly famous model involved a series of electrodes positioned over the problem areas of the face, which would deliver rhythmic shocks to the facial muscles throughout the night to keep them toned. Imagine trying to sleep while a series of battery-powered pulses caused your eyelids and lips to twitch uncontrollably in the dark. These masks were born from a culture that viewed the aging process as a mechanical failure that could be corrected with enough tension and pressure. They were often uncomfortable, painful, and visually terrifying, turning the bedroom into a laboratory of vanity, where the pursuit of youth required wearing a mask that looked like something out of a slasher film. People wore them with a grim sense of duty, believing that the discomfort was a small price to pay for the preservation of a smooth forehead or a sharp jawline. These 5 items reveal a startling truth about the 1950s. It was a decade defined by a radical, almost reckless optimism in the power of the new, where the fear of being outdated was far more potent than the fear of a wire cage, a chemical burn, or an electrical shock. We look at these objects today and laugh at their absurdity, yet they serve as a profound reminder that what we consider normal or essential today will likely be the dangerous curiosity of the next century, proving that the human desire to fix what isn't broken is the one thing that never truly goes out of style. These strange and hazardous inventions show us that while technology changes, our willingness to suffer for the sake of a perceived improvement is a permanent part of the human condition.